Hello, everyone. Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. Today is Wednesday, September the 4th, and it's around 10:35 Rio de Janeiro time. So good to be here with you. I hope to see some of my friends. I see one over here. Hey, Bill, how's it going? Bill says, Oi, Luciano. A lot of things going on in Brazil there. Hope you rested up from your vacation. Yes, Bill. Thank you so much for participating in our live streams. Bill is always here for us. Sebastian, hello, Luciano. I'm buying a property in Brazil for over 1 million reais. I am investigating the money transfer and I think Wise plus their affiliate Banco Rendimento is the fastest and cheapest. Agreed. Sebastian, so Wise, if you are in touch with them, you probably know about that. They have a cap. They have a cap for either 50,000 US dollars or 250,000 reais per transaction. That's one of the concerns. So you would potentially need to handle multiple transactions. And their back office is not really well connected to Banco Rendimento. So I hear from some people saying that they were able to get this done. Other people will come to us after being stuck with Wise slash Bank Rendimento for, I don't know, like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and sometimes even missing the closing date. So I would assume it may be a matter of, being luck and getting the right representative at Wise to connect your transaction to Banco Rendimento, okay? Because Banco Rendimento is the Brazilian bank actually handling the currency exchange, and you have Wise in the middle, okay? So Banco Rendimento is going to be asking for things, and then Wise is going to interpret what Banco Rendimento is asking and trying to convey to you, and vice versa, right? So sometimes there is a disconnection in terms of information, okay? But in terms of fees, Wise is very competitive. Whenever you work with back office, the fees naturally, they are not the same fees you get from Wise.com, right? Like, I mean, for smaller remittances, that's the platform I use myself. I use Wise a lot. But again, for smaller amounts, for larger amounts, I never use Wise. I use other options. But this said, by all means, investigate. And if you feel like you got a good back office representative who knows what this person is talking about, there may be a good route for you to consider, Sebastian. Paige, good morning, Luciano. Good morning, Paige. Good to see you over here. Good afternoon. Good to see you over here. Many Moon Acres. Boa tarde, Luciano. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you back, Many Moon. Now we have other folks who are joining us very often. I'm very happy to see that. All right, let's see. Sebastian Mueller, he's doing a follow-up a comment here. I was told that I can do multiple times at the same time. I could do multiples at the same time. So I assume like multiple transactions at the same time, right, Sebastian? Yes, I mean the upside of doing multiples at the same time is that you don't need to wait for those transactions to conclude to start up with the next one. The downside is like if they don't work, then you have a bunch of transactions that are not gonna work, right? Like so, there are always pros and cons. But listen, I know of people who have been able to use Wise successfully, right? It's more like a heads up that whenever you're sending large amounts, is not the same experience that you have when you're sending smaller amounts. For smaller amounts, in my opinion, Wise is the best out there. But when you're gonna work with larger amounts, then it changes, the dynamic changes substantially. All right, Aaron Lopez, welcome Aaron. Aaron is asking other options such as. All right, Aaron. So there are actually not that many options, Aaron. And whenever people ask me about the options, I'm gonna tell them, listen, there are actually 150, 165, 175, 176, or 174. It depends on when you're checking. Financial entities authorized to run currency exchange in Brazil. Very interesting for you to understand. Foreign entities, they cannot, handle, they cannot exchange Brazilian reais. It's not like US dollars, right? Like US dollars, it's like a global currency that's going to be exchanged across the globe, not the Brazilian real. The Brazilian real can be exchanged only in Brazil, and it gotta be through one of these 175 financial entities. I'm sharing a link with every single financial entity allowed to handle currency exchange into Brazilian reais. So if you click on this link, you're going to see the list. And now answering specifically Aaron's question, the ones I recommend, and these are the ones we work with here at the firm, are going to be the ones that are both a bank and a bank specializing in currency exchange, right? So we're talking about two factors that we consider when working with here at the firm. They must be a bank. I do not recommend you to work with an agency or a broker, because not surprisingly, those smaller players, they can go out of business. And if they go out of business because of mismanagement of funds, you could be in trouble. All right. Now, banks, like, I cannot recall when a bank was last going out of business with clients' money, right? So banks, they are super solid in Brazil. I would believe maybe even more solid than they are in the United States, because of the crazy regulation we have in Brazil. Right here, regulation is a super big business. Regulators and their thousands of red tape soldiers, they are always ready to jump in whenever a bank is not following the standards, right? So therefore, if you work with a bank, you're going to be in a much better position than if you are working with a smaller player. So first requirement, make sure you're working with a bank. Second requirement, don't work with any bank. You should work with a bank that is specializing in currency exchange, because then you have the best of both worlds, like a large player, but a large player that is specializing in currency exchange. All right, I hope that was helpful. Minimum Acres. Minimum Acres has a question. If you become a temporary resident through the Viper visa, are you eligible for health care via SUS, or if SUS only for citizens, permanent residents? Minimum Acres, if you become a resident, all right, either a temporary or a permanent resident, you're going to be fine with accessing healthcare via SUS, right? For those who do not know, SUS is like the let's say the public health system available in Brazil, and traditionally SUS is available to, of course, Brazilian citizens. But once you become a resident and you get the RNM card, which is your Brazilian card as a foreign citizen, you will have access to the SUS public health system. All right. Just a heads up, Minimum Acres, like, there are foreign citizens, they don't care about waiting in line. They don't care about, let's say, a less than ideal health system. But SUS works pretty well for most Brazilians. But usually, traditionally, Brazilians, like from middle class and up, they are gonna have private health services. They are not going to rely on the public system. So when you go to a hospital that is run by the government, meaning it's part of the public health system, you can tell you can tell that you don't see many people from the middle class and up. You're going to see people who are middle class, like, and the poorer, or, like the lower financial classes in Brazil. All right, so that's a choice. Something else for you to consider, minimum, is that private health insurance in Brazil is pretty affordable. It's not like in the United States, which is absolutely crazy, out of this world, right? Like a family could be easily spending over 1,000 US dollars per month. Okay, like in Brazil, if you are by yourself, if you are even applying for the retirement visa, or the Viper, if you are in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, you can very easily buy health insurance for less than 1,000, not $1,000, 1,000 reais, meaning that for less than 200 US dollars, you would have a private health insurance. And then with private health insurance, you can use not only the public health system, but you can also use, a more higher end, a more premium health system, if you will. All right, Paige, I'm happy to say I got my CPF. They didn't ask me anything, just wanted my papers and then gave it to me. Congratulations, Paige. I remember our conversation. At the beginning, I thought you were in Brazil, and in Brazil, it's a huge pain in the neck for you to get the CPF by yourself. But if you go to a consulate abroad, usually that's how it's going to work. It's pretty straightforward. Pretty happy that you were able to get the CPF, Paige. Thank you for sharing. All right, MD Motorcycles. Hi, Luciano. Welcome, MD. I think it's your first participation over here. Mark Brooks, why would you not just do an international wire transfer? All right, Mark, bank to bank. That's a great question, Mark. So there are maybe three main reasons, probably more than three reasons, but I'm gonna tell you the three main ones, right? Like the first one is that when you send an international wire transfer, it means you're not gonna be able to time the release of the money. So if you're buying, let's say, real estate in Brazil, you don't have an escrow. Okay, it's not like in the United States. You have an escrow. The seller is not gonna get your money until the seller signs the deed of sale. In Brazil, sellers expect you to pay upfront, but we Brazilians are not gonna pay until the day of the closing, right? And because we are locals, we have, of course, a Brazilian bank account, and we can make like usually like an instant payment to the seller, right? But if you send it the money from abroad, there is no such a thing. When you send the money from abroad, first is that the money is not going to arrive automatically, and to make things even more challenging, you're going to need to go through a compliance process. Okay, so when you send your money, let's say if you go to Chase Bank and you send let's say 200,000 US dollars to a seller of a real estate, this money is not going to show up automatically in the recipient's bank's account. All right, the money is not going to be even indicated in the seller's bank account. The seller will need to chase his bank manager. So the bank manager is going to contact the currency exchange department. They are going to locate the transfer, and only after they locate the transfer, they are going to ask you or ask the seller for a bunch of papers to verify that this transaction is in compliance with the requirements from the Brazilian Central Bank. And if they believe they are, then they are going to actually release the money. So just right there, this could easily take a week to 10 days, right? So this is one of the reasons, Mark. The second reason, let's give you one more reason, right? The second reason is currency exchange rates. The most competitive players are naturally not the banks that people use for everyday needs. So if you send it the money directly, bank to the seller's bank, chances are the seller has a bank with, for instance, Bradesco, Itaú, Banco do Brasil, and so on. Now, these banks, they do a bunch of things. They don't do just currency exchange. And therefore, also because they have like, a brick and mortar branch, they are not going to offer an ideal currency exchange rate, right? So that's the second reason. You're going to get less for your money, okay? And the third reason is because you are unable to handle the transaction review upfront with the currency exchange banks. As long as you have a relationship with them, you can actually run this kind of compliance tests upfront. And therefore, when it's time to send the money, you're not going to need to worry, all right, what if I send the money, they don't like my paperwork, and then I am unable to perform as per the contract, right? So these are the three main reasons, Mark, because people would rather work with a currency exchange bank instead of just doing a bank-to-bank transfer. Now, this said, bank-to-bank transfers, they are feasible. And I would assume if you look at, like all the transactions that are happening as we speak with foreign citizen buyers, they're actually doing bank-to-bank. And then the risks you're going to face over there are going to be, sending the money to the seller way up front. Let's say if you're sending money today, and the transaction is going to happen, 3 weeks down the road, and something happens to the seller, then instead of getting your property, guess what? You're going to be entangled in a probate in Brazil, right? So that's a concerning risk. You're also not going to be getting like a great currency exchange rate. That's all right. It's part of life. But yes, you could do a bank-to-bank transfer, Mark, and I believe that's what actually happens in most of the transactions, right? So unless you are working with a firm like ours, you're probably going to be doing a bank-to-bank transfer anyhow. And aside of the timeline, a rate that's not ideal, there is nothing wrong, with the bank-to-bank route. All right. Okay, Sebastian is chiming in. Hi, Mark. My research indicates that it would be way more expensive and a lot slower and the same security. Yeah, so yeah, Sebastian is kind of touching on the same points. Thank you for chiming in, Sebastian. Rony Dio, welcome, Rony. Has been a while. Rony says, boa tarde. In a past podcast, you mentioned you helped a client with importing a vehicle they drove to Brazil. Was this a temporary or permanent import? Ronnie, that's a temporary import, right? Like you cannot get a permanent import with our help, right? If you want to do a permanent import, you're going to need to hire a customs broker, and you're going to spend a boatload of money, right? And in addition to spending a boatload of money, you're gonna be restricted to one of two. It gotta be either a brand new car, meaning you bought from a dealer, and it gotta be again a brand new car. It cannot be a used car. Or if you're bringing a used car, it gotta be a collector car. That is around for over 30 years, all right? Anything in between, there is a prohibition. You cannot bring it to Brazil, all right? So in the example I shared with you, it was a guy who was coming from the United States. I think he was driving an SUV, and it was probably like a 10-year-old SUV, and he just came into Brazil driving. And then we were able to indicate the correct department he would need to show up and basically share his temporary residency. And this guy in particular, he got the digital nomad visa, which is a pretty limited a visa from a time perspective, but he could still get this type of temporary license to drive his SUV in Brazil for the same duration of his digital nomad visa. Okay, Ronnie, I hope that helps. All right. Many moon acres. When I got my CPF at the consulate in Texas, I only got the CPF number on a letter. My Brazilian friends tell me I should have a CPF card. Is just a CPF number enough for buying a property in Brazil? Many moon acres. I think your friends, your Brazilian friends, are incorrect. So in the past, all right, a while ago, yes, you would get a plastic card with your CPF number and your name on it, right? So that was actually the case a while ago. Since COVID, the card is no longer being issued, and there is no need for a card because whenever you are using the CPF, the other party, they can check if your CPF number is valid on the spot. You basically just enter the number and your name and your date of birth on a website from the government, and then this other person can tell that your CPF is good. So there is no need for the card anymore, and therefore consulates and even departments in Brazil, they are no longer issuing the card. So your Brazilian friends, they are still caught in those times before COVID, in which, yes, a card would be issued, but that's no longer the case. So enjoy your CPF minimum. Your CPF, even though you don't have a card, it is as good as the CPF is with a card. Paul Van Dijk, welcome Paul. When applying for the digital nomad, should the documents be sent to Brazil beforehand to be translated, or do we bring them to Brazil when flying, considering that is being applied in Brazil? All right, it looks like Paul is doing some research. So as implied here in Paul's question, there are two routes. You can apply for the digital nomad either at a consulate abroad, of course, a Brazilian consulate abroad, or you can apply while you're in Brazil. When you apply abroad, it's going to depend, people, on where you are applying. So if you are applying, for instance, in the United States, every single document that you are presenting in English is going to be naturally accepted by the Brazilian consulate because they are, of course, fluent in English. Okay. Now, if you are applying in other countries, that could change. Let me give you an example. If you are applying in China, surprisingly, you may need to present a translation from Chinese to English or Chinese to Portuguese, which is extremely rare. But the point is, like the Brazilian personnel at the Brazilian consulate in China, they usually don't speak Chinese, right? So guess what? You will need to present translated documents at the time of application. So whether you need to present translated documents abroad is going to depend on where you are applying. But for our clients who are mostly from the United States, if they are applying in the United States, they don't need to translate anything, okay? Now, if you are applying in Brazil, then yes, every single document that you're going to present to the Brazilian immigration should be in its original format and in Portuguese as well. All right, and in addition to that, there are some distinctions when you are applying in Brazil. For instance, for your birth certificate, which should have an apostille on it, you must do the sworn translation, which can be done only in Brazil, not abroad. And for everything else, usually a regular translation with no certification at all will be enough. All right, I hope that helps. Let's see. Paige says, what is the longest I can stay in Brazil without a visa? I would like to spend about 4 months there, visiting different places to decide where to buy a house. Yes, Paige, that's a very common approach. Like, I mean, when you're gonna apply for the Viper, like you don't know the property that you're gonna buy up front. Some people, they are gonna hire us to actually find the property. They say, listen, these are my requirements. I want something in this area. And then we have a person here at the firm who can assist with that. Other people, they like, the shopping stage of the process, which is completely understandable, and I think people should enjoy that. So you're going to be traveling to different cities. You're going to be seeing different properties until you find the one, right? So when your plan goes like that, you can have the let's say if you are a U.S. citizen, you're going to have 3 months under a waiver, meaning you don't actually need any visa at all. You just get your passport, you travel into Brazil, and Brazil is going to let you stay for 3 months. Now, a lot of people know about the extension, meaning you could, in theory, ask for an extension for an additional 3 months, right? Now, just remember, until last year, until November of last year, I can tell you that pretty much every single extension request was being honored, meaning that you just apply and you get it. But after November, it looks like the new federal administration has been slowly enforcing a requirement for you to present a reasonable explanation, just like as it goes in the United States. If you are in the United States under a 6 month visa, right? Like you enter the United States under a tourist visa, you get 6 months usually, traditionally. And let's say if you are 5 months into the your stay and you are sick, you can petition to the USCIS, which is the body in charge of extensions, for an extension. But you're gonna need to not only present an explanation of why you needed the extension, but you also need to present enough paperwork to support your request, right? So that's how it works in the United States, and that's what it looks like the Brazilian government is trying to accomplish. Like saying, listen, if you need an extension, if you have a good reason for me to give you an extension, we're going to give you an extension. But if you just want to stay longer because you are enjoying Brazil, that's not enough reason for me to give you an extension. All right, so there you go. These are the timelines page for you, to find your property in Brazil for the purpose of the Viper visa. All right, Aaron says, do you see anyone getting the digital nomad visa extended for more than 2 years? Someone told me they were approved for 5 years, but I don't know if that's true. So digital nomad visa here at the firm, Aaron, is consistently renewed for just 1 year, okay? And we do have notice of people getting the renewal for a second time, right? Meaning that the digital nomad visa, and maybe for those of you who do not know, the digital nomad visa, when it was conceived in Brazil, the idea was to give you, enough time, just to try out Brazil, and if you like Brazil, then to find something more long term. And the idea was you could get the first year and then apply for a single extension of 1 year. Okay, but now we have notice of people getting the 1 year extension for a second time, and it looks like the Brazilian government is saying, listen, as long as you comply with the regulation, as long as you are, being paid abroad and spending your money in Brazil, we're gonna allow you to renew the digital nomad on a continuous basis. Okay, but very important for you to understand that this is not going to lead, to permanent residency or citizenship. Okay, some countries such as Portugal, they are going to allow you to apply for permanent residency or even citizenship under pretty much any type of legal stay. But not Brazil. Brazil is going to say, listen, if you want to get a permanent residency or if you want to pursue citizenship, then you need to work with the higher end visa routes, such as Viper, right? Like the residency through investment in real estate. There is, of course, like the marriage-based residency, and there is the parental rights route to residency. So these are like the higher end ones. Interesting enough, like the retirement visa started kind of just like the digital nomad, but the government now is changing the dynamic behind the retirement visa to make it something that's going to give you access to the permanent residency and the citizenship as well. So that's why at the beginning, paperwork-wise, the Brazil retirement visa and the digital nomad, they were pretty similar. But, like during the last year, the paperwork for the retirement visa, it got much more demanding. And that's when we, thought, all right, like now the government is saying that the retirement visa is going to give you access to both like permanent residency and citizenship. And that's what we are seeing for people who got the retirement visa at the beginning and they are now renewing the retirement visa. They are actually seeing the option to apply for the permanent residency, which is pretty nice. Okay. All right. We have a question, a follow-up question from Bipal. If someone hires you for the digital nomad visa, do they usually send the documents to you before they go to apply in Brazil, or do they bring it with them personally? Thanks for the response, Bipal. So to apply for the digital nomad visa, we don't need any hard copies. So in theory, what we recommend people to do is like this. Like if you decide to apply for the digital nomad visa, you should hire us SAP, right? Some people, they say, well, I want a checklist. I want to work on the documents. Once I have everything, I'm going to hire you, right? But that's not the right sequence. You're going to pay us a certain amount. And once you get on board with our firm, right, after you sign the service agreement, we are going to assist you with securing the documents. Because if you think about it, like you're going to have questions throughout the process. And why, going through the gathering documents stage by itself, if you could have our feedback along the way in terms of which documents you should secure, how you should secure, and which level of legalization is going to get you through the application, right? So that's why I always tell, listen, if you are abroad, if you're planning to come to Brazil, I don't know, like in November, December, you could hire us now so we can set up your board at our, intranet. You're going to see all the requirements. You can start to upload the documents. We're going to review the documents. For the documents that you are uncertain about the requirements, we're going to explain to you exactly how these documents should be. So when you come to Brazil, you're not going to have any surprises in terms of what you're going to need to have for the application, okay? We do not file the application before you touch Brazil, right? Because you got to be physically in Brazil when we apply in Brazil. But we can do so much work up front, such as advising on the documents, reviewing the documents, right? Even getting the translation for the documents. So when you come to Brazil, as soon as you are in the country, we could basically just go ahead and file your application with the Brazilian immigration. All right, people. I hope that makes sense. Page M, what is the longest I can stay in Brazil without a visa? I'd like to spend about 4 months there. All right, no, we handled that question already from Paige. All right, Paige says, I was planning to travel around, and once I found the right place, I reach out and hire you guys to help with the buying process. Yes, Paige, absolutely. That sounds like a good idea. And like I said, many people are gonna enjoy themselves in the shopping stage, and I don't see any problem as long as you just remember you never sign something up front. Some real estate agencies out there, they are gonna make you sign a binding offer, which is not a good idea. And if we find problems with the property later on, like you kind of entangled with the seller, right? So just make sure you don't sign anything, and you should be fine, to do your shopping travel around and enjoy yourself. By all means, Paige, it sounds like a good idea. All right, Bill says, thanking all that are here. Please don't forget to like. I appreciate it, Bill. Yes, if you guys could please like our live stream, that's gonna help our live stream to show up in other people's search. And not only that, after the live stream is over, this content is gonna be recorded and it's gonna be available on YouTube. And then again, the number of likes is gonna help other people just like you to find our content. I really appreciate it, Bill. Good reminder, people. Please like our live stream. Okay, Minimum Acres. What is the fee for your firm to assist with the digital nomad visa? Typically, how long does it take to process? Minimum, our fee as of today is 975 US dollars, roughly like 5,000 Brazilian reais. Okay, and the process usually goes like this: 1 month for you to collect the documents. It takes us an additional 3 to 4 weeks, so let's say an additional month to actually file your application, and an additional 3 months for the Brazilian immigration to approve your visa. So altogether, right there, we're talking about 5 months. All right, Minimum, I hope that helps. B. Paul, thanks for the response, Mr. Oliveira. It was very helpful. I'm glad it was helpful, B. Paul. And make sure to show up again. I'm always happy to see new people joining our live stream. GB, hey GB, it has been a while. E aí, Luciano, tudo bem? I'm coming to Fortaleza soon to decide on a property. All right, GB, there you go. Yes, Fortaleza, Ceará, great location, a lot of activity, by foreign citizens. Ceará state, right, like is in the northeast of the country. It has been very traditional with Europeans, like Europeans have been in Ceará for several decades, actually starting in the 70s, okay? And but nowadays we also see a lot of people from the United States. There are direct flights. This is something new. Like there wasn't any like 10 years ago, but now we have actually multiple direct flights from the United States to Fortaleza, and Fortaleza is the capital of Ceará. At least a couple in the state of Florida, right? Like I think maybe even like 3 direct flights coming from Miami. I'm sure that there are direct flights from Miami. Fort Lauderdale, there is another direct flight. I'm not sure about Orlando, but I would assume so. So at least 2 direct flights just from Florida alone. Very easy nowadays to get to Fortaleza, Ceará. And one thing very interesting, like there was a client, I'm not sure if he was living close to Miami or, but he would sometimes travel, believe it or not, he would travel to Fortaleza for the weekend. Okay, so the guy would say, all right, I'm gonna, like travel overnight, like on Friday. He would enjoy Saturday and Sunday in Fortaleza, and then he would be back for work on Monday. Okay, very impressive. Not for everyone, for sure, but there was, such an interesting sharing from this client. All right, Minimum. If you need more than 3 months to find a property for Viper, could you use the digital nomad visa, buy a property during that year, then apply for Viper? Yes, Minimum. Yes, for sure. That's something very common here at the firm. Actually, we have many clients who say, listen, I don't want to rush myself. I want to really, take my time. And, they could apply for the digital nomad visa. So they're going to have a full year to find the property. And I personally like that approach. I understand some people are more, they want to make like faster decisions. They want to move ahead. In my case, I do like, to really understand what I'm doing before pulling the trigger. So if I was to follow a plan minimum, I would do exactly what you're saying. I would first secure a digital nomad visa, take my time, to find the ideal property, and then buy that property within this 1 year timeline. A pretty good idea, minimum. Aaron Lopez, continuing with Paige's question, if I'm searching for property in Brazil and reach out to you to swap to Golden Visa, will I need to fly back to the US for anything? So, Aaron, traditionally, yes, that was the case until 2023. But now the government is offering a track for you to apply for the Golden Visa while you're in Brazil. That was not the case in the past. So let's say still to this day, most of our applications historically, we would get the visa actually sent to a consulate abroad. The applicant would need to travel from Brazil to the consulate abroad, attend an interview, secure the Golden Visa, come back to Brazil, and then get the like the long-term residency or the permanent residency, right? Actually, first they give you for 4 years. They want to make sure you're not going to run to sell the property, and then after 4 years you can apply for the permanent version. But that was until last year. So last year we started to move to this direction of trying to apply 100% in Brazil, and we have been successful. We do have a few golden visas applied 100% in Brazil, meaning the person was in Brazil when buying the property. We would, do the application for the golden visa. We would secure the golden visa, and the person would acquire the residency, right? While still in Brazil. So yes, 2024, Aaron, that's actually feasible. Okay. There is one detail over there, right? Like, I mean, for the digital nomad visa, because it's more like an entry level type of visa, the background check, meaning the criminal records, they can be pretty much anything. So let's say if you are from California, you could get, the background check from Los Angeles County. You don't need any sort of apostille. You just get the records. That's good for the digital nomad. However, for the Viper / Golden Visa, since it is something much higher end from an immigration perspective, then you're going to need something much better, which is the FBI background check. And it's not easy to get the FBI background check when in Brazil, okay? This said, because we have this need on a continuous basis because of the number of clients we have. Nowadays, we acquired the FBI background, fingerprint forms, and we have in our offices in Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo. And for our clients, what we do, we're going to ask, these applicants to come to the office. They're going to do the fingerprint. We can do the fingerprint for you on the spot. And then we're going to send this paperwork to the United States for further processing, okay? So just a heads up, like if you go to different firms, like I would guess 95% of the firms in Brazil handling immigration, they don't have a presence in the United States. So they would probably tell you, Aaron, that this is not possible, right? Because in theory, you would need to come back to the US to get the background check done through the fingerprinting. But in our case, because we do have a presence in the US, we are able to take your fingerprints in Brazil, send it to our office in Dallas, Texas, and then this office in Dallas, Texas is going to send the paperwork first, of course, to the FBI. Once the records come back from the FBI, there is an additional step, which is the apostille process, which is done in Washington, D.C. And it's a process that takes between 4 to 6 weeks, but that's something we can assist you with. All right, so interesting question. All right, let's see. Minimum acres, just thinking that maybe the digital nomad visa could be an option for Paige or others to have enough time to find the location and the property for building their new life in Brazil. Great sharing, Many Moon. Many Moon is looking after our other friends here, and you are absolutely right. Aaron Lopez, great question, Many Moon. I was thinking the same. There you go. Paige, a reply to Many Moon. I really appreciate the thought. Problem is, I'm having extremely difficulty finding a remote job to even qualify for the digital nomad visa. Paige. All right, Paige. Yes, when you don't have work, the digital nomad visa may be not the right route. I wish Brazil would have something such as like the passive income visa. We don't have a passive income visa. We do have the retirement visa, which is kind of similar, but it's not really passive income. It's more focused on social security type of income. Paige, something that some clients are gonna do, they're gonna set up an entity just for the purpose of qualifying for the digital nomad visa. Okay, that's not for everyone. Giving like the complexities of forming an LLC, and then later on you're gonna need to file taxes and pay a CPA, right? You need to set up a bank account. You need to pay yourself, and you still need to work, right? So it's not just you have an LLC, but you still need to do some kind of work. So it means like you would be starting a business just for the sake of qualifying. I don't think that's for everyone, but I can tell you, we have multiple clients who chose that particular route, and they would say, listen, at the end of the day, it's a way for me to stay for longer term in Brazil. And who knows, maybe to make some money because I had this business idea in the back of my head. And now I'm going to, try to combine both things. I need something, to stay in Brazil. And now that I have the entity, why not try to make real money with this entity, right? So that's something I saw in the past. But again, not for everyone, for sure. All right. Danish Wahid. Welcome, Danish. Hi, I just joined the live stream from Pakistan. Welcome, Danish. I have a question for you. Can we bring our family to Brazil on a digital nomad visa? If not, it is possible to bring them on a family reunion visa. Danish, so I can tell you've been doing some research. So for the digital nomad visa, you're not going to get a visa unless you qualify as per the requirements. Meaning, let's say if you have a spouse, right? Because you're talking about family. If you have a spouse, to qualify for the digital nomad visa, both of you would need to work and meet the requirements and apply for the digital nomad visa. Okay. Now, this said, under the family reunion visa, you will need, for instance, to have children under 18 years old of age, and then they could apply for the family reunion visa. And in theory, under the new administration, under the current understanding, because those things, they change over time, right? So that was not the understanding last year. Last year, the understanding was that the digital nomad visa was like for individuals, not for families, okay? Now, the new administration is saying, you know what, as long as you meet the requirements, you can have a child or you can have children with you, and the children would come under the family reunion visa. Okay, it is also potentially possible that a spouse that is financially dependent on you could also qualify, but that would require you to have, like more funds than a regular applicant. Just because if you think through, like the digital nomad is gonna be available to you if you're making $1,500 a month. But that's from your perspective. When you start to apply to bring children and a spouse, then of course, 1,500 is not going to be enough. And even though Brazil doesn't have like a metric such as Portugal, Portugal has a very clear metric, right? Just to give an example, like in Portugal, in Portugal, by the way, you need a lot more than 1,500. it is, if I'm not mistaken, four minimum salaries, meaning I think, if I'm not mistaken, 3,280 euros just for the main applicant, right? And for the family reunion, spouse is going to trigger a need that you're making 50% more, and then for each child, you're going to need an additional 30%. So a lot of money. Okay, Brazil doesn't have such brackets, at least as of now. I'm sure they could be working on something like this. But the point is, like, when you start to try, when you try to bring people under the family reunion visa, you're gonna need to show that you are able to take care financially of all of your family. All right. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, minimum is, like, was probably just reading my thoughts. Minimum is telling Paige, I have a friend who was in the same position and created an LLC and paid herself through the LLC to qualify for the digital nomad visa. Luciano would know best. Yeah, so we're connected, minimum. Exactly. Like, we have many clients who did that, right? Like, that's not something that we're going to recommend right from the bat, because here the idea is that you're going to have an actual business, right? It's not enough for you to just create the LLC, because you need to provide a letter of verification of work, and you don't want to be, like, deceiving the immigration personnel. So basically, as long as, yes, you can, form the LLC, and as long as you do any type of work under this LLC, and of course you need to follow requirements for the paperwork, which is the reason why we're here, to help you meet those requirements. But yes, that's a available path, and that's a path many people are going to follow. Kitwell, olá, cara, tudo bom? Muito bom, Kit, muito bom vê-lo novamente. Do you know how Brazil handles retirees with post-tax income, like from Roth? Would that be taxed again? Tudo de bom. Kitty, there were changes in taxation, like from last year to this year. And I know that Brazil does tax, retirement income, right? Like, there are some income. I think disability, for instance, if I'm not mistaken, like, you don't pay taxes on disability income. And this is a kind of repetitive question we hear here at the firm. And most of the time, yes, you're gonna pay taxes on any income that you have. Brazil is not gonna need to follow the exemptions like set up by the United States, right? Like, I mean, we're talking about two independent taxation systems, and unfortunately, there is no tax treaty between Brazil and the United States, right? Like, there is a treaty, very interesting to share. There is a treaty almost in effect between Brazil and the UK. There is a treaty that has been in place for a long time between Brazil and Portugal, between Brazil. There is another one between Brazil and the Netherlands, and there is a bunch of treaties out there, but there are no treaties between Brazil and the United States. So I can tell you, Brazil, it's always tax whatever income you have from the United States. There are some exemptions. There are some, ways to minimize your tax load, but these are going to be usually based on the Brazilian rules and not on the U.S. rules, such as the Roth IRA, which is a variety of IRA. There is like the pure IRA, and then there's the Roth IRA. But Brazil is not going to be paying attention to the exemptions set by the United States. Instead, Brazil is going to be looking at your income, and it's going to be assessing your taxes from a Brazilian perspective, if you will. All right, Katie. All right. Danish says, and is there time frame to live in Brazil before applying for family reunion? Can you also confirm if the couple has the option only to receive, permanent residency after childbirth? All right, so you have two questions here. The first one, how is the time frame, right? Like for you to apply for family reunion. Danish, this is gonna be based on your nationality, and Brazil has a whole table, right? Like a whole table with the nationalities, with every single nationality, the visa requirements, and how much or how long you can stay in Brazil under the original entry and under a prospective or a potential extension. Okay, so this should be checked on that spreadsheet. I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me, but very traditionally, it's going to be 90 days, either renewable or not, right? So U.S. citizens, they can apply for a renewal. Many nationalities from Europe, they cannot apply for the extension. And if I had to guess, if you from Pakistan, I would assume you don't have the waiver that U.S. citizens have, so you're going to need a visa to enter Brazil, and you're not going to qualify for the extension, okay? So as long as you are able to secure a visitor visa for everyone, like you guys could come under a visitor visa, and after you decide, right, like after you try out the country and you decide to apply for the digital nomad, you should be doing that within the 90-day period of time. All right. Okay. So second part of the question from Danish: can the couple apply for permanent residency after childbirth? Yes, that's a very traditional route in Brazil. If you have a child in Brazil, you know it does not matter the nationality of your spouse. You can apply, for permanent residency in Brazil, and even citizenship down the road, because you are the parent of a Brazilian citizen. So yes, this route is available, and it does not matter your nationality, right? I know some countries, they are gonna make this available or not, depending on the person's nationality, but Brazil doesn't do that. Like Brazil is gonna make this available to everyone. Okay, all right. So I see here Aaron is already saying goodbye. Obrigado, Luciano. Tchau. Até a próxima. So we are about an hour into our live stream. I'm going to take an additional couple of questions. Don't forget to like our content. I don't see many likes as of now. If you could do me a favor and like our live stream now, I really appreciate it. Don't forget, we're going to be together again on Sunday. On Sundays, we meet at 3:30 p.m. Rio de Janeiro time. So we're going to be together again on Sunday. Don't forget, you can come to our channel. You go to the live tab, and under the live tab, there are options for you to click on notify me. And when you click on it, guess what? You're going to be able to receive a message from YouTube saying, all right, your live stream is about to start. And then you don't forget, if you are walking around, I hope that on Sunday you are enjoying your weekend. You can basically just click on your phone and, watch our live stream no matter where you are. But all right, let's go back to the last couple of questions. Paige says, I had my own photography business, but closed it due to the lack of business. Should I open it back up for the purpose of this visa? Paige, so the photography business, it may be a little bit tricky, and I'm glad you're sharing with us, because for the digital nomad, it gotta be some type of work that you are able to do remotely. Okay, so your business should be in the United States, right? So if you're gonna need to take like I don't know, like if you're gonna be doing local work in Brazil, that would not qualify for the digital nomad. But if instead, let's say if you're just doing the editing, right? Let's say you have like photographers in the US, they send you stuff for editing, and you're doing the editing remotely, then yes, this would qualify. So just remember, digital nomad means that you are physically in Brazil, but you are working outside of Brazil. All right, Paige, just keep that in mind. Minimum acres. I love that idea. As you'll be traveling around to find your location, you could work doing photography while you're looking for your property. Yes, minimum. Like the idea is really enticing because you're traveling around. You could be doing photography. There is just this requirement that the work is being done abroad, right? So my concern here is that if you are taking pictures while in Brazil, there would probably be a concern for the Brazilian immigration to approve such application, right? But I agree, it would be a big joy for Paige, to do that. Maybe even, for herself, for her portfolio, maybe outside of the scope of the digital nomad. All right, Many Moon Acres is asking about my vacation. It was great. I spent time with family in Portugal. Most of my family lives in Portugal, actually, right? Like my family originally comes from Portugal, but I was born and raised in Brazil, and I spend substantially more time in Brazil than I spend in Portugal. Okay, and whenever I am in Portugal, it glitches my head because I think I am in Brazil, right? Like the language is pretty similar, culturally, behaviorally, things are similar. Of course, Portugal, I think, is a much smaller place than Brazil, so is more cohesive, like in terms of culture and costumes. But I had a blast. Thank you for asking, Manny Moon. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your Wednesday and see you